Over the nearly 20-year history of the Battlefield franchise, there have been several great maps worthy of praise. A few of these go on to become legendary, icons themselves of the Battlefield series, and appear time and time again through game engine upgrades and subsequent iterations. This is not that story. This is the story of the maps that few want to play, and remember only because they were that bad. Maps which should never be remade. This is the story of the worst maps in Battlefield. Battlefield 4 is a weird game when it comes to maps. Given that the game is superior to Battlefield 3 in almost every way, it is quite odd to find that so many of its multiplayer levels are just so frickin' bad. Not only that, but DICE's choices for what maps to bring back from prior Battlefield games are also incredibly questionable. I mean, of all the great maps from Battlefield 2 and 3, the fact that Dragon Valley was even considered annoys me. So here we are in Battlefield 4, and since DICE admitted to themselves that since people obviously love Dragon Valley so much, they would try to make a new map which would be inspired by it. And guess what? They succeeded, because Dragon Pass is an even bigger pile of crap. So much so that I argue that it is the worst map of Battlefield 4. As usual, we will examine the Conquest Large variant because nobody plays any other version. Dragon Pass is a 7-flag map that is larger than it has any right to be. The flags are positioned along two main roads which sweep across the length of the map from the left to the right on each side of the major river which flows throughout the map. The map itself is so narrow that aside from these two roads, and I guess the river, there is no other method by which to move from flag to flag. The map therefore becomes a major stalemate at nearly all times of a round, as tanks and players cluster along the roads in between the flags. Sometimes someone manages to sneak by and have a squad spawn on them and a rear flag is taken, only to be quickly greeted by the onslaught of tanks coming back to recapture. Back captures are rare though, given the minimal flanking routes, amount of vehicles with thermal vision, and the lack of any cover whatsoever. The initial push of Dragon Pass always revolves around the D flag. Jeeps and tanks rush there ASAP, for both control over a well-defensible flag, as well as the bomber station call-in, which of course is always a joy to be on the receiving end of. The D flag is already a pain in the ass to push into, since there are usually a minimum of 2 enemy tanks on it at all times. But what really makes it stupid is this mountain. This being Battlefield 4, DICE said, yeah, whatever, and just allowed players to sit on this mountain without any restrictions whatsoever. So, in addition to the infantry and armor on the ground, any players pushing near the flag must take care not to smash their own faces into their desks when confronted by the cancerous plebeian scum that sit on this rock and shoot MBT laws and javelins halfway across the map with the aid of their SOFLAMs. And of course, the only legitimate way to clear it is with the help of your own team's helicopters. The helicopters on this map though, 1 attack helo and 1 scout helo per side, are usually too busy ducking, diving, and just all-out evading the multitude of anti-aircraft fire coming from not 1, but 2 mobile AA tanks, 2 stealth jets, the enemy team's helos, and any soul on the ground who happen to have a Stinger or an Igla. Some people claim that Dragon Pass is a good attack helo map. These people are insane. Sure, I'll admit that at times, an expert chopper duo can farm the map hard from their side of the map, but it really can't move up past the D flag or die. A good chopper map it makes not. Nor does it make a solid infantry map. In the video I made for Gulf of Oman, I discussed why armor-heavy maps in Battlefield 4 tend to be excruciatingly painful for infantry players. Tanks in Battlefield 4 have too much armor, the APS can mitigate several rockets, thermal vision reigns supreme, And most importantly, it's sometimes rare to see multiple players attacking a single tank at once. Okay, now multiply the tanks by 4, add an LAV, and the mobile AA by 2, this is per side by the way, shove them all in 2 thin lanes of the attack, and you get Dragon Pass. Infantry can barely move up past this wall of armor. As pushing flags on this map turns into a meat grinder for infantry, what results is usually a conservative, low-kill, defensive game on both sides, on a round that seemingly lasts forever. Gunfights on this map are largely reserved to defend the smaller, more cluttered flags like A, C, and G. As on every other flag, the spawn points and lack of cover often result in tank farming. Between the flags, few players rarely ever push. Instead, most players tend to only enhance the standoff between tank and anti-tank rocket dynamic. The armor fares no better on this map than infantry play. Tanks are usually pinned down by AT rockets, other tanks, helo rockets, the bomber, the terrain, which is far worse than even its ancestor Dragon Valley, deep rivers, lack of cover, thin bridges, odd raises in the terrain, and these fucking impassable bushes everywhere. LOL, what's playtesting? This map has jets too. Not that anybody notices most of the time because these die so damn fast to all the nonsense and do a grand total of no damage to things on the ground. Astoundingly, this map isn't even balanced regardless of the stalemate meta. The US team is at a huge disadvantage due to the flag layout. If the US gimme flag A is taken by the China side, it can be incredibly difficult for the US team to recap, especially if the tank spawn gets stolen. The C flag is also a difficult flag for armor to push against if there is not enough decent infantry, and it holds a high ground position over the north and south lanes. Meanwhile, the D flag, which is almost always held by the China team, is a pain to attack due to the insanely long open distances between the B and C flags to it, its position on the higher ground, and its wonky terrain. Even when held by the US team, it is usually retaken quickly. Then there's the B flag, which not only spawns a mobile AA, but guards the pass out of the US main base. Should the A and B flags be held by the Chinese team, the US team has a tendency to quickly crumble. The map layout dictates that the US team must funnel through choke points to move out of the uncap, and when capped out, this can prove impossible. Here's the bottom line. Dragon Pass is a terrible map, without a doubt the worst map in Battlefield 4, and likely among the worst maps of the entire series. Tanks, choppers, planes, infantry, nothing is good to play on this map. It is a frustrating snooze fest. A map which when I see it in the map pool, I roll my eyes and proceed to verbally berate every lunatic and inexperienced fool who votes for it. It deserves to be buried and forgotten along with every other Battlefield map that has the name Dragon in it. Believing that alone makes it cool.